Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make beads into earrings. So this can be quite a process depending on where your bead's hole is and which direction you want your bead to face. But I have all these different kinds of beads where the holes go through different places. So we're going to go through each of the ways that I would turn these into charms or earrings. And then you can decide what you want to do for your own. So for supplies, I prefer wire like this, like jewelry wire. It's a lot easier to work with, and I just prefer it. But if you don't have this, any kind of string will work as well. We're just gonna have a slightly different technique with that. So let's get started. I will put different chapters in the description for which parts of the video are for what bead. This bead is going that way. This bead is going sideways through the top. This bead is going up and down, but it's kind of like a different shape than this turtle. This one has a hole right at the top right there, and then this one is a bead going that way. So kind of different vibes for all of them. Let's get started. Ignore the lawn mowing in the background, but I'm also going to be using these rings at some points, and of course you're going to need earring tops for making them into earrings if that's what you're doing. So let's get started. Okay, this turtle bead has a hole going through from the top to the bottom. So for ones like this, I'm going to decide where I want my earring to hold. So I want to hold like that, which means I'll be doing it straight onto this. And then I'm gonna cut some wire. You'll want a wire cutter for this. Again, you can also do this with string, but it can just be more difficult. So I'm gonna want to make it so it goes through all the way twice. So I'm just gonna take it, and I'm adding a little bit of excess because we can just cut anything we need to off. And we're gonna use this to twist it at the bottom. If you're using wire that's stronger like mine, you're gonna want some tools as well, because as you can see, it's a little hard to bend without tools. So I'm going to be folding it in half pretty thinly. So you can see that this one has curved, like crossed. You don't have to do that. Basically, we're just trying to make it so that the top is a good enough loop, because we're just gonna stick one half into that. So now all we have to do is put the bead on and then secure the bottom. So I'm gonna make this as squished together as I can. There we go. And then I'm going to put that bead up onto the wire. Again, you might need to use your tools. And then this is as well is where you will want to twist your bead around to be whichever direction you want it to be. So I like this direction. So I'm okay with this little wire sticking out. You can pull it farther if you want it to be less, but I kind of like it that way. And then we're just gonna finish it off at the bottom. Now again, this really depends on what you want to do. You can bend these over so that they kind of hold it themselves and then cut it. Or like I might do is I might chop it pretty close to the end, and then I'm just gonna add some super glue. Though this is really secure enough that I don't think it'll just come off, but I'll add some super glue anyways. So you can see that this came off. That's okay, because the reason it came off is because there's a little loop right there, so I'll just fix that afterwards. There we have that. Again, this is a little scratchy at the bottom, so I'm just gonna add some super glue and let that dry. Okay, next is this bead. So there's little holes at the top, almost like it's made for jewelry, like to stand out, so like necklaces and stuff, which is very nice. So you don't necessarily need to make this a pendant, but if you want to make this into earrings, you will have to be connecting it to a connection point. So I want to stick that thread through. And then there are multiple ways that you can do this. It kind of depends on what you're going for. So I'm going to take that string once I put it through, tie it in a knot, and then balance that on the top slightly loosely so that it rests on the top and doesn't squeeze onto one of the sides. And then I'm gonna double knot that so that it stays. Bam, now we've connected it to the bead and we just need to connect it to our earring hook. So you can see it's gonna pull like that. So I pull that tight. And then for this one, I am now going to just attach it again to my earring hook. So I'm going to stick the string, one of the strings through the hook this way. And if you want the bead facing a certain direction when it's on the earring, pay attention to that as well. And then I'm going to just tie that string with the other string and it will align that earring hook pretty well. I'm going to super glue all the knots from the string. So I'll come back and I'll show you what that looks like after. But that's kind of the vibe we're going for. You can do a white string if you'd prefer the white look, or you can even do like see-through string, and that can be a little bit more inconspicuous. But for me, I've got my black string and I like how that looks. So I will super glue that and we'll come back to it. Now I'm gonna show you how to do an up and down bead with some stretchy string. So it's very similar to what I did in the turtle bracelet. Or turtle earrings. We're gonna figure out which direction we want the charm to go. So I've got that. So I'm sticking the string through it like that. And then I will be putting them together. Then sliding them through the top of the bead. And then you can either tie a knot at the bottom and super glue it, or super glue it and then cut it, which is a little more risky, but sometimes I like to do that. You can add beads at the top and the bottom if you want, and then do that, and that's always nice. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a knot. And by tie a knot, I mean tie a lot of knots. And then I'm going to super glue that little knot right there and cut it once it's dry. You want to make sure that the knot is either big enough to hold from the bottom of the earring, or that the super glue kind of glues the knot to the earring. Okay, this one is pretty straightforward. So there's two ways that I would do this kind of bead, and I'll show you both of them. So I'm going to take my earring hook, unhook it, you're gonna need it pretty big. Stick that through. Mine's a little bit small. You can add loops, or you can even change the shape of the earring hook a little bit. So you can see that because I bent it a little bit, I have a little bit more freedom to put that charm on there. Then you just bend it around so that it does fit. And then from there you can put that bead back down there. Put this spring back on. And then rebend our earring hook so that will go in here. Obviously this one is not perfect. If I were selling this or giving this to someone, I would probably spend more time on making it a nice bend. Like even that is better, but you just have to kind of make it work with what you have, or buy bigger hooks. There's that. That's actually pretty cute, and that's not too bad. So that's how I would wear it, so I'll just keep that for me. You don't have to super glue this one. You can if you really want to, but you don't have to. And then finally, we have our little sideways bead guy. So for this one, I cheat a little bit. You can do what we did with this one on this, but I don't love the way that looks because it just looks like string hanging out. So what I like to do for these is I like to add a little pizzazz around it, and then it makes it easier for us. Sorry for the noise, but I actually have another tutorial on how exactly to make this daisy smiley face earring charm, and so I will link that in the description, and you can go watch that video if that's what you'd like to see. So now that these have dried, some of the string is stuck because of the super glue, I'm going to cut off all the excess strings that we have. This is how this technique turns out. The super glue actually is not all the way dry like I thought it was, so maybe I'll cut that shorter later, but there's what this one looks like. It swings still, which is nice. We've got our cute leaf earring made out of bead. I'm going to cut the strings off of the butterfly. Super cute. And then I'm gonna, oh, I don't need to cut anything on the turtle. And I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a comment or like or share this video. It helps out a ton. And I appreciate you. Have a great day. Bye.